Hello, YouTube divers. This is Water Diver 122, and I want to welcome you all to another episode of Magic Metal Mondays. Today, we are going to be doing another album review. We're heading back to Helloween. We are going to be talking about the 1987 album Keeper of the Seven Keys Part 1. Now, I already made an album review on Keeper of the Seven Keys Part 2, which came out right after this record. You can find that on the Magic Metal Mondays playlist. Yeah, it's a really great album, But we're going to talk about part 1 today, so let's get started. So the backstory of this record for me, this was the second Helloween album I was exposed to, right behind part 2. In between part 1 and part 2, as you all know, I prefer part 2, simply because it got me into the band, and it's what made Helloween one of my all-time favorite bands. So yeah, part 2 is a little bit more special to me, hence why I like it more than part 1. But part 1 is still a freaking amazing album, and we're going to get to that in the review. Song-wise, this probably is the most stacked of Helloween's albums. Like, most of their popular material is found on this record and on part 2. But I feel like most of their best material is found on this record. And again, all that's coming up in the analysis. So this was the first album to feature one of my all-time my favorite metal vocalist of all time, Michael Kiskey. After Kai Hansen stepped down from the lead vocal position to focus on guitar work, because he was the vocalist and one of the two guitarists on the band's first album from '85 entitled Walls of Jericho. For those of you who don't know. Now, Michael Kiskey basically brought a whole new piece of momentum, if you will, with his vocal abilities. I will make a separate video of my top 10 metal vocalists of all time here on Magic Metal Mondays, so I'm not really going to get too analytical there. But when I hear a song on this album, I always think back, man, Michael Kiskey is such a great singer. And fun fact, he was 19 when this album came out, or when he was recording it with Helloween. That dude's got some talent. Now, also they had the original 4 members from the Walls of Jericho album with Hansen, Michael Weikath, Marcus Grosskopf, and Ingo Schwichtenberg. They all do an amazing job on this record. But at this point, we are going to get into the review. So let's analyze this record. So we get a little cool intro entitled Initiation, and this really sets up the tone, the mood of this record. And then immediately after the Initiation intro, we come into already a banger. Already a Helloween banger. I'm Alive, written by Kai Hansen. Oh my goodness gracious. That song is amazing. Really, it's the first song off of Keeper Part 1 that I heard, but, at first I didn't really like it. But my gosh, it has grown on me since my first listen. Then track 2 is A Little Time, written by Michael Kiskey. Interesting song, I won't lie. The chorus is pretty cool. But I do have to say that out of all the songs that are on this album, none of the songs on this album are terrible, but in my opinion, this is one of the weaker tracks on this record. Now moving on to track number 4, Twilight of the Gods. I believe that this song was written by Michael Weikath. I'm not really sure on that one, but my guess is either Weikath or Hansen, one of the two guitar players. So yeah, but Twilight of the Gods, still an amazing song, and the guitar solo, one of Helloween's best guitar solos in that song, I will tell you. Now, after that, we start getting into the classic stuff. right after Twilight of the Gods, right after the amazing funness of Twilight of the Gods, we come into one of the most iconic metal ballads of all time, A Tale That Wasn't Right, written by Michael Weikath. Oh my gosh, this is one of my favorite power ballads ever. Just the way Michael Kiskey sings it is just bound to make you cry. In whatever version you hear, from the Pumpkins United tour to the early live inputs to of course, the album version, that song is guaranteed to make you cry. It's such a great song. And then after that, we come into track 6, which is Future World. And it is my second favorite Helloween song of all time, only behind I Want Out. Future World is a masterpiece, written by Kai Hansen. They kept playing it ever since, and hard to understand why not. Because this song right here is an absolute masterpiece from the Michael Kiskey era. Really from Helloween in general. It's basically what inspired me to check out most of their other albums. So congratulations on that, Future World. And then moving on to the final grand epic on this album, Helloween. Now, I'm just gonna get this off my chest. I know a lot of diehard Helloween fans love this song. I do too. If you remember back from my Helloween album rankings that I did, when I was talking about this album, I mentioned Helloween and, didn't really enjoy it. What the heck was I thinking? This is a masterpiece. Easily one of their best epics. One of their best epics. I love the first half of the section where it's all that fast, all that power metal stuff. The guitar work. Where do I even begin on the guitar work? And my favorite part of the song is where they make a Charlie Brown reference in the second verse. And if you don't believe me, go listen to the song, but make sure you have the music sheet in front of you, because you're going to be blown away. And the second half of the song, with so many great guitar solos, so many great vocal lines by Michael Kiskey, so many great moments. Easily one of their best songs. Helloween by Helloween, one of the best metal epics ever. And then the album ends with a nice little outro, Follow the Sign, which is under 2 minutes long, but it references it basically is a foreshadowing of the epic closure from part 2, Keeper of the Seven Keys, where it constantly mentions lines throughout Keeper of the Seven Keys, the song. I mean, our only hope's your victory. You're the keeper of the 7 keys, for example. I just love that they do that. And in preparation for this video, I was listening to Follow the Sign for the first time, and my God, it is creepy. It's creepy, it's suspenseful, it's basically leaving you curious of what's to come. And this kind of reminds me of something that Rush did between Feral to Kings and Hemispheres, when they had that Cygnus X1 epic, where on one album they had the first part, and on the other they had the second part. And there's this cool little interlude at the end of the first part that goes into the second, that feeds into the Hemispheres part. And, but except here they actually reference a song that's on another album, but it doesn't feed into that album. If that makes sense. I know it's a little bit hard to explain. So with that said, that is literally the entire album. There are only 7 songs on here, or 5 if you don't count Initiation or Follow the Sign. But if you do count those 2, then 7 songs. But still, This album is a masterpiece, but it's not as good as Part 2, simply because Part 2 is a little bit more closer to my heart. So, yeah, a little bit of nitpicking there, but really the two Keeper albums are just masterpieces. Part 1 is an absolute masterpiece, and Part 2 is on another level. I've already talked about Part 2, as I've already said. But Keeper the Seven Keys Part 1 gets an easy, solid 10 out of 10. It's a classic album for a reason. It is so well made. It's so heavy hitting. It's so amazing. It'll blow your mind. If you're starting out on Helloween, definitely start here. Either here or on Part 2. Because these two albums are just masterpieces in the genre of power metal. And they were among so many influences to countless power metal bands across the globe. So with that said, that concludes this edition of Magic Metal Mondays. Thank you so much for watching, my fellow YouTube divers. This is WaterEye122 signing out, ready to dive into more fun on YouTube. Thanks for watching.